What do you make of the theory, I guess, the prevailing theory, conspiracy theory, if you want to call it
Yes,
that, or
yes,
the theory that's been
yes.
sort of reported out by someone like Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone, who hopefully will be on the show next week to talk about it, that it was Israel that killed Charlie Kirk, that there's something suspicious about the timing and the emphasis of statements from Benjamin Netanyahu offering condolences. And then more recently, he put out a video disclaiming that Israel was responsible, which to some people's ears feels like thou doth protest too much. And that in combination with these chat messages between the alleged shooter and his partner that seem perhaps to some people's eyes and ears formal and tonally off
Yeah,
from what
yeah,
you would
yeah.
expect of
Bizarre.
people of this age. All of that is leading people to say like he's a patsy and that it was really Mossad that did this hit or Israel that did this hit because Charlie Kirk was reconsidering his position on Israel at the end of his life.
You know, at this point, like I read through those messages and everything else. I do think it looks more and more suspicious. Um, when I first was talking to someone about this and they were saying it's Mossad, I was like, okay, it's your fantasy that Mossad is that effective and powerful. Like it's this force that's in. We have to believe that there's a force that's so effective and powerful that can disrupt all of our lives. And now, like I actually, Brianna, I just don't know, and that's a very, very
Yeah.
hard position to be in. But the other thing is that I do know that the consequences are so awful and awful for any kind of democratic culture that we may still be able to preserve. So if
Can
there
you
is
elaborate on
some,
that?
I think that the authoritarianism of the right is just going to come down like a hammer. And we already saw with the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel, the firing of Jimmy Kimmel. And I think
Yeah,
that
let's,
that's just going,
yeah.
we're almost at the end of the time, but I think that the debates are more and more distorted. There's going to be, I wanted Charlie Kirk to live on so I could debate him one day. That's an attitude that I've had that made me, the object of so much hatred on X, which is fine. And there's the attitude of people who are saying, like, it's one less bigot alive. But you know what? If we tried to kill all the bigots in the world, we would just have a horrible massacre. We have to
Well,
try to
let's talk
persuade them, marginalize them, and disempower them.
let's talk about that. The tweet that you're referencing is you tweeted Charlie Kirk expressed views you may have disagreed with, but if you think he deserved to die, then you are the problem. You've probably been coddled by your private school teachers, but the reality is we are in a country built on freedom of speech. And this is, it has echoes of a similar debate that I had with Charlie Kirk, and also one of the members of Due Dissidents who gave me some pushback in a recent episode. And what I said to them was, I think this was a little bit of a false false binary that people who disagree with Charlie Kirk and don't want to have a hagiography of Charlie Kirk or canonize him and who will think it's appropriate to talk about the Islamophobia and anti-Black racism and all of the bigotry of his statements when he was alive is not the same thing as saying I'm glad he's dead or I wish he's dead. And a conflation of those two things seems to have the effect of silencing legitimate criticism of his message and the fact that people are actively exploiting his death to further
Mm.
push his message and his politics. What do you make of that?
The exploitation of his death to push reactionary, bigoted politics is
Yeah,
absolutely
that the
true.
critique of your, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know, I know. So there are two things that are happening here. You're saying that by deploring the political assassination of Charlie Kirk, we're ignoring, or I'm ignoring, the repugnant nature of his beliefs, which I don't think I'm doing. I think
Not
that,
exactly.
okay,
I would
well,
say what I'm saying is that by framing, like even the way, like looking just at the context, the text of this tweet, um, if Charlie Kirk expressed views you may disagree with, but if you think he deserved to die, then you are the problem. I think that this framing has been deployed by Ezra Klein. I saw Ryan Grimm, a lot of
it
others.
was really bizarre that I believed it. I agreed with Ezra Klein for once. It was very bizarre. Yeah, total
Well, I mean, how does that? I don't know. I mean, I think there's an argument that says, well, let me interrogate how I ended up on the same side of Ezra Klein on this issue. Because the criticism of Ezra Klein is not that you disclaim murder. I think that's not what's controversial. It's to write a piece lauding Charlie Kirk for doing politics, quote, exactly the right
no, that was
way without
okay. That
making
was
any mention. Okay, but you disagreed
okay.
with
So
that?
so here's the thing: is that I don't know if I can say it. Like I think if you hurt people, not with like directly hurt people, and you are an evil motherfucker, there are people who deserve to die. Charlie Kirk knew how to push every button as a provocateur, said all of these horrible things. You could say that about me. Do I think I deserve to die? There's certain people
Right.
who would think that because of the things that I say, because of the things that I think, I would deserve to die. I don't believe that. I deeply don't believe I deserve to die. I think that people can have views and they don't deserve to die. I don't
Right, but
know
if we
what's
can put that to the
controversial about that.
side, because everyone agrees about that, I want to be so clear that people are not objecting to Charlie Kirk, nor to your tweet on the basis that they believe that you should want to agree with the idea that Charlie Kirk deserves to die. Many people have said that, of course, Charlie Kirk doesn't deserve to die, but I am also not going to laud him or celebrate his life simply because I am not also celebrating his death. And to this point,
Did
I
I
don't know if you
celebrate his
saw
life? Did I
AOC.
celebrate his life?
No, but Ezra Klein did. And that's the source of the criticism. That Ezra Klein said, I'm not just saying it's bad to kill your political enemies, obviously. What he's saying is, and he did politics exactly the right way. And let me use this as an opportunity to laud how he practiced his life.
Yeah, no, that was awful.
Similarly, similarly, there was this vote today in the House, this resolution to honor Kirk's, quote, life and legacy that 95 Democrats voted in favor of, 58
This is
against,
all horrible.
38 voted
No, no.
present.
This is disgusting. This is horrific. This is an abomination. That said, I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to say, like, there is no academic freedom on campus right now. Things are going to get worse. There's no freedom. People can't say half the things they need to say about. We've repressed any criticism of Israel on campus. We've criminalized that. And, we've criminalized this. We've repressed all this speech about third rail issues. I'm not even going to bring up here because I'm going to keep my powder dry and but the racism that's at the heart of his issues, that's at the heart of his beliefs, they're repugnant, but they're also easily refuted and argued with. And I don't know what Ezra Klein was saying was something very different from what I was saying.
Okay.
Except for the fact that we did say that political violence and the political assassination of Charlie Kirk was wrong. We took that position together. Yes. But his now like platforming far right guys on New York Times, it's too fucking much. But it was something that, I responded to in the immediate moment. I saw Ezra Klein's thing. I saw all the shit that he was getting. Ben Burgess and Jacobin got the same shit that I did. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? This is the temperature of the nation. This is the temperature of the left. You can't. I didn't lionize him. I didn't say he was a saint. I just don't think. I still don't think that people should be killed for what they say or believe. I really don't believe that.
Let me try this.
Is that fucked up with me?
Let me try this out on you, Catherine. Let me know what you think. I watched I think it was Monday of this past week, segment of Piers Morgan, in which he kept asking, I think Destiny was the quote unquote left member of the panel. Will you condemn Charlie Kirk's murder? Will you condemn Charlie Kirk's murder? And Destiny had gone so far as to actually make jokes about and celebrate Charlie Kirk's death. So that's why he was clearly brought on the panel to be made an example of and to demonstrate how horrible the left is, even if his approach was relatively anomalous. That being said, there was something about the way that the primary question and focus of the conversation was, will you condemn Charlie Kirk's murder?
It's like,
In a
will you
way that
condemn Hamas? Yeah.
Exactly. This is where I'm going.
Ridiculous.
That excluded all of the violence that Charlie Kirk personally advocated for, that reminded me of, will you condemn Hamas? And whether or not you would condemn the individual killing of an innocent civilian. The project is obviously, with that question, do you condemn a resistance act against an occupation and validate the legitimacy of Israel's occupation? That's really what they're trying to frame you up with the, will you condemn Hamas? So similarly, can you see why someone, even if in a normal conversation between friends, they would, of course, not advocate for violent retribution, extrajudicial killings, etc., why they would bristle at the idea of being forced into a conversation, or the idea of needing to first condemn Charlie Kirk's murder before you can have any conversation about the legitimacy of Ezra Klein's column or anything else.
Sure, 100% sure. I would never ask him to do that. No, but I think that Charlie Kirk was only successful because he was supported by these right-wing billionaires who knew that he was a provocateur, who could put his finger on all the soft tissues of liberal ideology.
Or that he was able to do that when he debated no offense to 18-year-olds, but very silly young people. I debated Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you know that. And
no, I did not.
If you look through the comments of that video, I'm not just saying this, his own Turning Point USA audience felt that he lost that debate.
Sure. I totally believe that. I would totally
that's another,
that.
I think, frustrating aspect of the Ezra Klein framing, which is that he was good at his job. He was willing to meet people where they are. He welcomed debate. No, I mean, it's like saying that I'm a strong man because I go into a preschool and start pummeling 3-year-olds in the face. I mean, sure, like, I guess I'm really good at fighting 3-year-olds, but you got to put it in context. And he also erased, to your point, Catherine, the billionaire backing that enabled an 18-year-old to start a company like Turning Point USA that could do something like fly out a person like myself from DC to do an in-person debate. The one other aspect of your tweet that I think we should address is this in part where you frame people who believe Charlie Kirk deserved to die as having been coddled by private school teachers, but the reality is we're a country built on the freedom of speech. I think that some people I saw bristling at the idea that, again, I don't think that it's people who think he deserved to die, but people who are really frustrated by the hagiographies of him by the liberals and the left in the wake of his death, that was an elite position. But I wanted to play a clip of a protest that happened in New York by folks that strike me as not especially elite, who are doubling down on their sort of unwillingness to be precious or conciliatory or, to grieve, to be kind of forced into a public grieving of Charlie Kirk.
Fuck Charlie Kirk! 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 He was a racist! He was a racist! He was hateful! He was hateful! He was never like Martin Luther King! He was never like Martin Luther King! Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Justice for trans. They police my speech. They police my speech. Police follow me around. Police follow me around. They follow Reggie around. They follow Reggie around. They want to police us. They want to police us for speaking for freedom. For speaking for freedom. But people can spread hate. But people can spread hate and get national holidays. That's why. I can't stand the police.
Okay, I think that gives you the gist. So this group of folks who are protesting in New York, looks like they're at Times Square, is doubling down on, no, I hate Charlie Kirk. I hate what he believes in. I hate that we live in a society that would quite literally establish not a national holiday, but a day of remembrance for Charlie Kirk that happens to also share a birthday with George Floyd, but not protect people like George Floyd, not advance the sort of policing reform that was so popular in 2020, and then ask us, moreover, to publicly grieve, to kind of force us and cajole us to express publicly
Yeah, I mean, who
solidarity
wants
with
to
him.
do that? Who wants to do that?
Today, the Republican House majority brought to the floor a resolution honoring, quote, honoring the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's assassination was a horrific and vile attack and incident of political violence. And condemning the depravity of Kirk's brutal murder is a straightforward matter, one that is especially important to help stabilize an increasingly unsafe and volatile political environment where everyday people feel more at risk. We can deeply disagree and come together as a country to denounce the horror of this killing. And it is not a license for the abuse of power and whitewashing of American history. Today's resolution only underscores the majority's recklessness by choosing to author this condemnation and honoring on a purely partisan basis, instead of uniting Congress in this tragedy with one of the many bipartisan options to condemn political violence and Kirk's murder, as we did with the late Melissa Hortman. Instead, the majority proceeded with a resolution that brings great pain to the millions of Americans who endured segregation, Jim Crow, and the legacy of bigotry today. We should be clear about who Charlie Kirk was. A man who believed that the Civil Rights Act that granted Black Americans the right to vote was a mistake, who after the violent attack on Paul Pelosi claimed that, quote, some amazing patriot, unquote, should bail out his brutal assailant, and accused Jews of controlling, quote, not just the colleges, it's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it, unquote. His rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, far from the working, quote, working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution. It is equally important that Congress does unite to reject the government's attempt to weaponize this moment into an all-out assault on free speech across the country, all in the name of Charlie Kirk. President Trump and the FCC are now cynically threatening to shut down ABC and any outlets who give airtime to the administration's political critics. This is a disgusting attack on the American people and the very First Amendment rights that define us as a country. It is also the ABC Corporation's responsibility to refuse to embolden and participate in this corruption and escalation of censorship. We continue to pray for Mr. Kirk's family and loved ones in the wake of this terrible act. I am thinking especially of his children and his wife, whose grief cannot be measured. And with that, I yield back to the gentleman.
Okay, I mean, there's definitely street protests like this, but the people that I encounter or on Twitter, on X or something, it's all symbolic. It may be all just bullshit, but it's like, I hated him for saying these things, and I'm glad he's dead. Now, this African-American spontaneous protest on the street, I don't think is actually also indicative of anything necessarily progressive, but it certainly is a legitimate position as well. If you want to fuck Charlie Kirk, go ahead. I don't care. It's if you think that's a powerful position to take, yes, he's a white racist, and no one needs to mourn him. I'm not going to mourn him. But I don't think that political assassination or violence is good for the people right now that I care about. And the political project that I have is really about making people understand how American society is being raped and pillaged by private equity. And the private prison system and the private detention system and private for-profit hospitals, these are all of our institutions are being hollowed out now. If we think that making a demand that the police protect people, no, nobody's going to protect us because nobody is protecting American people from private equity. And they are raping and pillaging every single institution that we're involved in. So
I think
that's
that,
what is my focus. That is my singular, unbearable focus about what's happening to this country. Every single industry, media, culture, music, higher education, healthcare is being decimated by private equity. That's what I want to focus on.
I think if I could just say this to end on this subject is that the irony I think that people that I saw in sort of attributing a kind of unwillingness to treat Charlie deaths, to publicly grieve Charlie death as a sort of elite position, was that so many of the folks who were doing hagiographies of Charlie Kirk, like Ezra Klein, were very explicit about the fact that they saw themselves in Charlie Kirk. And that I almost saw, it almost seemed like the pattern was quite the opposite, that it was other elites, other podcasters, other media figures who showed the most sympathy with Charlie Kirk precisely because they saw themselves as similarly vulnerable as Charlie Kirk. And this is how Ezra Klein ends his piece. He says, I wanted Kirk to be safe for his sake, but I also wanted him to be safe for mine and for the sake of our larger shared project. The same is true for Shapiro, Hoffman, or Hortman, or Thompson, or Trump, for Pelosi or Whitmer. We are all safe, or none of us are. And what I saw was an outpouring of class solidarity from other relatively affluent, public-facing journalists, podcasters, and elites for Charlie Kirk, not because of what he stood for ostensibly, but because of who he was, in a way that you did not see that same solidarity of interest.
Can we deplore the political violence without feeling sympathy for him? I don't think.
I think that you can.
I mean,
but
Ezra
what's
Klein,
frustrating
maybe.
is people did not. People were conflating those two things and framing criticism of Ezra Klein's piece, and people like Ezra Klein who rushed to celebrate his, as this House bill did, his life and legacy, as in fact being happy that he was murdered in this way. And it cut off any legitimate conversation about who Charlie Kirk was and how we want to condemn his politics.
No, I mean, Ezra Klein revealed his hand when he, then platformed Ben Shapiro. What this is doing is making him seem like he's like balanced and middle ground, and all things being equal, we must all be able to debate each other. Why doesn't he have Hassan Piker on then? Why doesn't he have a left voice on? Maybe he will. But this is what centrist content producers want to do, is say there's a place for everyone. And is there a place for someone who's bigoted and racist, explicitly racist? Kirk's position was so fucking involved in campus politics that I think it was very limited, actually, because he's just like obsessed with American campus politics. And I think that his assassination has elevated him from beyond being a sideshow into being a national figure. And maybe that's also why I deplore the political violence. Do you know something, Brianna? Half the people I talked to, and professors, they didn't know who he was. They didn't know who TPUSA was. And now everyone knows who he is. And it's like, wow, what a great PR move. If this is Mossad's PR attempt to silence him, and maybe they did because he was going to come out as anti-Israel, this is a great move to elevate him. Because they're like people like political junkies like you and me, or content producers, and we're in this world. He was actually extremely marginal to a lot of stuff. Like I'm saying, he was on campuses a lot, and he would come and no one would really pay any attention to him. Like mainstream lib professors just weren't that involved in his discourse. And now he's like fucking everywhere. Even to say fuck Charlie Kirk is like giving him too much credit, actually. He was a kind of sideshow, and now he's like a martyr. And that fucking sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I also think there's a counter argument that says people didn't know about him, and now they're being made familiar with the vile statements that he has made as well. And to the extent that there have been so many people liberals and leftists, and of course mainstream conservatives, who have been willing to praise him, despite saying, and maybe we'll insert the clip of him. He makes a quote unquote joke, I think at a church, about how he used to joke that blue-haired liberals who support Palestine would be thrown off the roof of a building in Palestine if they ever went there for being gay. But now he can't make that joke because all the buildings have been blown up. LOL. Right? Like, and he says, well, if you didn't want to be killed, Muslims, then stop killing Jews, you filthy Muslims. We'll insert it because I don't want to be said I'm like mischaracterizing him and get fired like that reporter from the Washington Post. LOL.
So, it's funny. I used to say that, hey, if you as a gay person would go to Gaza, they'd throw you off of tall buildings, right? Now they don't have any tall buildings left, so I don't.
When you mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Is that too soon? I'm sorry. Maybe you shouldn't kill Jews, stupid Muslims.
He's all I like that.
Where was I? So, yeah.
But it's unequivocal racism. It's like unequivocal. It's like definitional Islamophobia, bigotry, definitionally. And so many people have been willing to say, okay, but he was doing politics exactly the right way. Or even my friend and colleague, Ryan Grimm, and my friend and colleague, Glenn Greenwald, both formerly from The Intercept, have said things about how, well, he was nice interpersonally. And, he was willing to debate as though that is intrinsically valuable. Like Hitler appreciated fine tailoring. The Nazis had good clothes. Why is that relevant, in the context of this conversation about who Hitler was and his quote unquote kind of political value?
That's once again like inflating Charlie Kirk's power. He's no Hitler. He's not Hitler.
Of course he's no Hitler, but come on, like we have to be able to talk about what other racist. Either you're a racist who's famous enough to cite an example like this.
George Wallace.
Okay, but he's also no George Wallace.
George Wallace.
Okay,
I think George Wallace was more deplorable than him. Because George Wallace was actually the governor of a state that,
but Charlie Kirk wasn't. But Charlie Kirk wasn't the governor of the state. So I can sit here and say it's inflating Charlie Kirk to compare him with George Wallace, unless I similarly find some racist who is mostly unknown, like Charlie Kirk, to your point. Then any example, any analogy that you make is going to seem to be alarmist.
Okay, so
but can't we just have a conversation? We all know that Charlie Kirk isn't Hitler.
Okay, but the whole thing is, but you went to Hitler. You went
because
to Hitler.
Because he's the world's most famous bigot. I'm sorry. It should be an easy analogy. The point is, it's not the scale of it, but the fact that we can all appreciate how beside the point it is to talk about, Hitler's Nazi uniforms being dapper, or making the trains run on time, or any of these other kinds of things, right? We can all appreciate that there's something almost like rehabilitative about doing something like that. That undermines the gravity of what these people were known for, and the horror of what these people were known for. And of course, he's no Hitler. But do you see the analogy that I'm trying to draw with people who want to emphasize his interpersonal skills that I did not witness, perhaps because as a Black person, he did not see me as an equal by his own admission. But what is the point of even saying that? What is the point of even acknowledging that in this context?
Well, I can't speak for Greenwald or Grimm or Klein in the way, but I don't have the same position that they do. And I also feel like on the left, though, or on the liberal left, we have to strain to perform the greatest condemnation of Charlie Kirk and make him Hitler. He was a deplorable American phenomenon. He was inflammatory, provocative, and bigoted. And he said disgusting things that could be easily disproven. He was a ridiculous person. His positions were fucking ridiculous. They were cartoons that were effective only because the liberal positions were so difficult to debate themselves. He was a fucking cartoon of a far-right guy. And he was totally sycophantic with regard to Trump. We should say that too. He kissed that guy's ass, and he was supposed to be Mr. Anti-authoritarian and skeptical of everything. But to just fulminate about him is not looking at the larger structure of what this whole situation produces. You know, I have to say this now. I mean, it's behind the paywall, but like, this is not Luigi Mangione and United Healthcare. I have friends who condemn Luigi too, who said he was an adventurist, friends on the left with whom I had massive disagreements. I thought, you know what? I want CEOs to be afraid. And I take a totally different position with that because I still think the class war is the only war worth fighting.
Yes,
so
it's interesting.
I'm going to get fired from my job for saying that probably. But I am deeply, deeply anti-violence. Deeply anti-violence. I want there to be massive social transformation with the least amount of violence possible. But it seems that, you know, we are heading towards total social and political chaos in America.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.